So, with all this talk in the news right now about student loans being forgiven or canceled, forgiven, I thought I have a unique perspective on this topic, and it really upsets me when I hear it, and I'm about to explain why. So first of all, I went to college. I went to TCU, as you can see right here. I'm wearing my TCU shirt. You know, I'm proud of the fact I went there. The only reason I went there was because I wanted to walk onto the football team, and that's why I went. And in order to do that, I only had a 25% academic scholarship. So that meant I had to borrow the other 75% because, you know, my parents, good for them, by the way, did not contribute a penny to my education. Good for them, you know. They let me know when I was in high school, hey, you need to do all you can to get scholarships and everything like that. And I got a 25% academic scholarship, which was good, but obviously I could have done better. But anyway, back on subject. I'm proud of the fact I went to TCU, but I had to borrow money. I had to borrow a six-figure sum ultimately over the course of my time there. So what did I do? Did I run to the government and ask them to cancel my student debt? No. Did I think the government was going to take care of it? No. You know what I did? I had no life in my 20s. From the time I graduated in 2011 all the way up to June of 2018, I worked 2 jobs constantly. I had no life. My entire 20s, I had no life because I was always working 2 jobs. I wrote my last check for $5,000 in June of 2018. I was 30 years old to finish off my student loans. From 2011 to 2018, I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3 if you count the contract work I did. I didn't run to the government to ask for them to pay back my student loans. I sacrificed. I would go sometimes 3 months without a day off. 3 months. You know why August 29th, 2014 has so much importance to me? Because I went from May 26, 2014 to August 29, 2014 with not a single day off. I was either working at the TV station at the time in Iowa, or I was working at the restaurant I worked at down the street. 7 years. 7 years of working 2 jobs to pay off my student loans. I didn't go to the government to ask them to pay off my student loans. I took responsibility for my loans. That's one reason I get heated, because I sacrificed. So what about people like me? Am I going to get retroactively paid if these loans get forgiven or canceled? Now, I know what the instant go-to defense for this is, because I've seen people on Twitter with similar experience to me that actually took responsibility and paid their loans back. Here's the go-to response from the, please cancel my student loans crowd. It's, well, you shouldn't want to wish other people to have to go through the same thing you did. I don't want people to have to sacrifice their entire 20s and work 2 jobs for 7 years. I don't want to have people to do that. Even when I started to make, a decent salary, which is hard to do in TV, but I was able to do it, that's another sacrifice I made. I wanted to be an on-air journalist, but I got paid a lot more to crunch numbers for TV stations instead and do market research and political research and all that. So even when I started to make $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, I still worked 2 jobs because I just wanted to get my debts paid off as fast as possible. I don't wish that on other people. I don't. But the solution is not to cancel student debt. That's not how you solve the problem. Canceling student debt is the equivalent of you being in a boat that has a hole, a leak, and instead of plugging the leak, you just bail all the water out. Guess what's going to happen? The boat is just going to reflood, and you're going to have to keep bailing the water out if that's your strategy. Because guess what? If student loans are forgiven, if student loans are canceled, the problem's not going to be solved. Because in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to have a new wave of college graduates who want their student loans canceled. And they're going to be like, well, you canceled debt that one time. Are you going to cancel ours? So you're going to have a bunch of people going to college, getting student loans with the expectation that they're going to constantly be forgiven. Because if you forgive student loans once, then people are going to expect it to happen again. It's not going to solve the problem. The problem is that college has become too expensive. Too expensive. You should not have to take out loans to go to college. Why is it so expensive? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm about to go to TCU in an hour. We have a Rose Bowl reunion for the Rose Bowl team I played on. I was there last Saturday. My cousin had a soccer game there. I don't recognize the campus anymore because you have all these buildings. All these new buildings. You know, all these colleges are flush with cash. You're not paying these exorbitant prices in college for the education. You're paying for these fancy buildings. You're paying for things like at Ohio State University. They spend $13 million a year in compensation on their diversity, equity, and inclusion department. You're not paying all this money for education. You're paying for all these fancy bells and whistles, fancy buildings, lazy rivers, things that you're going to only be able to access for 4 years, and then when you graduate, you can't use that anymore, and you're saddled with the bill. The problem is that college has become too expensive. You should not need loans to go. You should be able to afford college by working a job if you need to, or other ways. It should not be that expensive. But like with everything else, whenever the government gets involved in something, it becomes expensive. Name one industry the government has got involved in that became cheaper. I'll wait. It doesn't happen like that. The reason college is so expensive is because there's this unlimited supply of money out there. With all these government-backed student loans, the colleges are like, well, if these 18-year-olds coming to go to our school have all this easy access to tons of money, well, we're going to take advantage of that. If let's say the government got involved in the auto loan business and say I owned an auto dealership. If there was these unsecured auto loans given out like candy to anybody and anyone, if I was an auto dealer, what would I do in response to that? I would jack up my prices because there's all this free money out there that anybody can get. That is why college has become so expensive, because the government is involved in the student loan business. If the government were to get out of the student loan business, college tuitions would drop overnight like a rock because the money supply would be turned off. That's the problem. That's how you solve the problem. I know what people are going to say, well, making college cheaper won't help the people who have already taken out all these loans. I understand, but you still made the choice to sign the dotted line. But if you want to make an actual difference, you got to find ways to make college actually affordable. Because what's happening right now is not sustainable. It's too expensive. People go into debt and they can't pay it back because college has become too expensive because you're not paying for education. You're paying for all these bells and whistles that attract people to the campus, like lazy rivers. How is having access to a lazy river at the campus pool going to help you when you're in the workforce? How are all these fancy new buildings going up at TCU going to help you when you're in the workforce? They're not. That's how you solve the problem. But it's not going to be fixed because the government doesn't want to fix the problem. I forgot the name of the congressman, but some congressman got elected, a Republican congressman, back in 2016 after Donald Trump won, and he wanted to do all these things, and Paul Ryan, the snake that he is, was like, no, we're not going to do that. We don't fix problems in Washington. That's not what we do. We want the problems to exist so we can continue to fundraise off them. Everything that Washington does is about fundraising. That's why nothing ever gets fixed. That's why problems only get created and made worse instead of solved. Because if you solve problems, you can't campaign on them anymore and raise money on them anymore. So this is going to continue. Yeah, Joe Biden and that his administration might use student loan debt cancellation as a carrot and a stick, and maybe it will happen. But here's the problem. If it were to happen, it would not help the Biden administration electorally. It would not help them because the people who clamor the loudest for student loan forgiveness and everything like that are already voting Democrat. All you're going to do is make the people who don't vote Democrat more upset. You're going to make the people who didn't go to college upset. Because here's why. All debts are paid. That's why I keep saying forgiven or canceled in quotations, because nothing is actually forgiven. Nothing is canceled. Somebody is going to have to foot the bill. All debts are paid by somebody. It's not like the debt erases in a vacuum. Guess who's going to pay? The taxpayers. The taxpayers are going to pay. So why should my taxes go to pay off your student loans? Why? And not only that, but it's going to be paid with money we don't even have. We're $30-something trillion in debt. With what money is this going to happen with? So we're going to print more money. And guess what printing money does? It makes inflation worse. Inflation is already bad. So if student loans are forgiven, we're going to print money to accomplish this. And all it's going to do is skyrocket inflation, meaning we're right back to where we started. Yeah, your student loans are canceled, but you're going to have to pay more taxes, and you're going to have to pay the hidden tax of inflation to make up for it. It's not a zero-sum game. The price is going to be paid by the taxpayers and via inflation. All debts are paid. It's not like the slate is wiped clean and there's no negative residual effects. There's a ton of negative residual effects. You think inflation is bad now? Try canceling student loan debt. Someone's going to have to pay. Someone is going to have to pay. And as usual, the middle class is the one who gets screwed. The middle class always gets screwed. Because like I said, all the blue-collar workers who didn't go to college, who learned a trade or something so they didn't have to take out student loans, they're going to have to shoulder the tax bill in the inflation bill. You think they're going to be happy? You think they're going to be wanting to vote Democrat after student loans are forgiven and they're the ones who have to foot the bill? The only voter base that Joe Biden still has is college-educated white women. They're the ones who clamor for student loan forgiveness the loudest. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to be like, oh, well, Joe Biden also has African Americans. Not really. The level of support, according to the polls, that Biden gets from African Americans is a lot less than other Democrats get. Yeah, they might have a favorable opinion of Joe Biden, but compared to other Democrats, it sucks. It's known as indexing. They're less likely to support Joe Biden than the average Democrat. So you're going to have all these demographics out there who didn't go to college who are going to be upset that they're footing the tax bill and the inflation bill for student loan forgiveness. They're going to be mad. And guess what? The only people who benefit are already voting Democrat. So it's not even going to provide a political win to the Biden administration. So I don't even understand why they would do it. It's politically toxic. It's political suicide. But it just makes me mad looking at all these people who think student loan forgiveness is such a great idea. It needs to be done. Screw you. Screw you. All it does is screw over people like me who actually were responsible and did what it took to get them paid off instead of running to the government for help. It screws over people who didn't go to college. It screws over the middle class because they're the ones who have to foot the bill. And even the people who get their student loans forgiven are still going to have to pay in some form, whether it be increased taxes or higher inflation or both. Nothing's going to change. You know why nothing's going to change? You know when I say you need to make college more affordable? It's not going to happen because higher education is an arm of the Democrat Party. And therefore, higher education doesn't want the spigot of money to go down because it means they can't bloat their universities and colleges with fancy buildings and unnecessary administrative departments and lazy rivers and everything like that. It's a grift. That's what it is. It's a grift. And if you actually made college affordable, that would end the grift, and that would make higher education mad, and therefore they wouldn't be able to donate as much money to the Democrat Party. Like I said earlier, everything is about fundraising. And if you make one of your primary donors mad, if you look at where colleges and universities and professors and everyone associated with higher education, if you look at where they donate their political money to, it goes pretty much 100% to one party. If you make them mad and make college affordable and cut all these unnecessary bloat, they're not going to be able to donate as much money to the Democrat Party. That's why nothing's going to change. That's why this is going to continue. And that's why they're going to keep using student loans as a political football to enslave you to debt for the rest of your life. That's what it's all about. It's about enslaving you as a debt slave and keeping you dependent on the system and dependent on government to bail you out instead of making your own way. Nothing's going to change. So even if student loans are forgiven, we're going to be back in the same situation 5-10 years from now with a new wave of college graduates who want their loans forgiven too. It'll never end. We're never going to see college more affordable because it'll end the grift. But anyway, I hope you understand where I'm coming from here. It makes me mad. It makes me mad to hear this because there's people like me who actually did what it took to get them paid off. I don't wish that on people, though. I want college to be more affordable so people don't have to do what I did and work 2 jobs for 7 years to pay off the loans. That's what you should be being activists about, making college more affordable, not having the government cancel student debt. Get out of here. Hallelujah. Holy, where's the Tylenol?